everything is quickening all around us. I often wake up in the morning and think about the ways in which the planet is showing us even more starkly, month by month, just how quickly things are changing and how quickly our lives are now being impacted by climate change. But at the same time, our response to that is quickening. We're actually beginning to see a much greater sense of urgency, whether that is through civil society organizations involved in a host of different campaigning and educational initiatives, whether it's through commitments from the business community, a lot of big companies now committed to net zero before 2050, or even in the declarations of governments, China committing to net zero by 2060, for instance, last year. And most encouragingly of all, of course, the degree to which we can now look to America to assume something of a leadership role in this whole race to zero through the election of President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, whose election campaign was very strongly characterized by a commitment to addressing climate change, a $2 trillion investment program to address every aspect of the climate challenge, and to do it in a way that speaks to the need for increased social justice in America, with a significant percentage of that investment going to disadvantaged communities. So this quickening is what makes 2021 such an important year. Now, every year in the climate story is an important year, but this is a particularly important year with COP26, the Conference of the Parties, at the end of the year, and a whole host of different initiatives now funneling towards that big moment, including initiatives from young people. Strikes for Friday, the initiative first inspired by Greta Thunberg, back at the end of 2018, has just announced the first global strike for 2021 on March the 19th. But what a contrast it is for young people thinking about their climate activism in 2021 in comparison to what they were able to do in 2019, where the momentum achieved by young people across the world was extremely influential in shifting political opinions. That was the context in which I wrote Rise Up, because I was thinking all the time about what this must feel like for young people, how difficult it is for them to get their heads around what is entailed in accelerating climate change, and how easy it is to fall into a state of complete despair. So Rise Up is a short book. It is written through the words of three 20-year-olds, looking back from 2025. So it's not written today, in 2021. It's looking back from 2025, not just to show how much progress we made in the intervening years, but how central young people were to that change process. They're not accidental bystanders, just passively involved watching adults continue to make a pretty ham-fisted job of it. But they are absolutely at the heart of the changes that happened between now and 2025. Now, since then, Reboot the Future has got much more involved in all of this in a joint initiative now, Rise Up to Reboot the Future, involving the book, involving some films, 5 short films, which can either be seen separately or together, and a whole host of educational resources which will enable teachers to contextualize a lot of what the book and the film is talking about, to be used either in the classroom or for remote learning purposes. And we think that's an absolutely critical part of this. So this is a very interesting, ambitious, integrated set of initiatives to bring this through into the classroom through the whole of 2021. It's a pretty important initiative for me too. I first got involved in all this back in 1974 when I first started out in green politics, and I also started out in 1974 as a teacher in a West London comprehensive. And it's a bit extraordinary for me now, thinking back on nearly 50 years, that things have come full circle, because much of my work today is focused on young people and how they see the world, and the ways in which we are going to need to think very differently about the contribution that young people make to this climate emergency. That's what makes Rise Up to Reboot the Future so absolutely crucial, because all of us as educators in one way or another, we all have a very special responsibility to act now as stewards, not just stewards of the planet, stewards of life on Earth, as it were, but stewards of these young people's future. And I think it is now absolutely crucial that we understand that we can't just do this with more business as usual. We have to do this very differently. We have to both inform, of course, but also we have to empower young people so that they can get more involved and feel heartened as they get involved, acting as some kind of antidote against the despair that otherwise descends too easily upon them. That challenge is critical, helping them come to an understanding of their own all-important role in addressing today's climate emergency. That's what makes this so exciting for all of us.
Thank you very much, Jonathon. That was really inspiring. We've got a question from our audience, if that's all right with you. Somebody has said you wrote an article about 6 months ago saying that if the government plots a green recovery from coronavirus, the benefits are endless. And it would be great to hear perhaps your top advice, either for the government or for us, on how to benefit from what many people have experienced as a total disaster.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for the question, because unfortunately it's a very mixed picture around the world at the moment. We all had a hope that governments would put a lot of their rebuilding investments into the low carbon economy, into protecting the natural world, into all of the things we know need to happen now as urgently as possible. It hasn't really happened like that. The figure shows that roughly 2/3 of the money that has gone into propping up economies has gone into the economy of the past, as it were, into carbon-intensive industries and so on, and only 1/3 into this low-carbon economy of the future. But that can still change, and we're very hopeful that it will change, because governments need to create jobs for millions of people all around the world, including millions of young people. And that can only be done by investment in the green economy, in terms of retrofitting existing housing, for instance. In many countries, housing is in a very poor state. In terms of investments in new skilled jobs in green energy, renewable energy, in terms of investment in nature itself, nature conservation, actually working to heal the damage that we've done over so many decades. So these things are all still available to governments, and let us hope that in 2021 they do a better job on building back better than they did in 2020.